الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي خلق الأشياء من العدم والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأولين والآخرين أبا القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم واسمعوا وأنفقوا واسمعوا وأطيعوا وأنفقوا خيرا لأنفسكم ومن يوق شح نفسه فأولئك هم المفلحون. صلوات.
اللهم صل على محمد وعلى
I will progress on the subject matter from the point that I have left yesterday in yesterday's Majlis. We saw that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His book has categorized the self into three broad categories. And we illustrated this point by reciting each ayat of the Quran in which different selves have been introduced. We said that the self is one, but it has got three dimensions. And we identified those three dimensions in last night's Majlis. Now, the self is also subdivided into other categories. And the philosophers and the mystics have written a lot about it into the subdivisions. There are divisions and subdivisions. But we don't want to go into that detail because it will become very complicated. We have restricted ourselves, we have limited ourselves, as I said in my introductory lecture, to the Quran, to the aqwal of Ma'asumin alayhi salatu wassalam, which are hujjat on us. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as I also indicated in my introductory majlis, has connected, this subject matter is also connected with the previous ayat and the forthcoming ayat. The ayat that we have been reciting so far continuously is ayat number 16 of Surah Taghabun. Surah Taghabun is the 64th surah of the Quran. Now in the ayat number 15, first of all, let me just briefly remind you that the ayat that we have recited, which is ayat number 16, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهِ, so fear Allah, مَسْتَطَعْتُمْ, as much as you can, وَاسْمَعُوا وَأَطِيعُوا وَأَنْفِقُوا, and listen. That means Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is ordering us to listen to the message, to consume the message, to digest the message, وَأَطِيعُوا, and follow it, وَأَنْفِقُوا, and spend and give for the sake of Allah, for the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أَنْفِقُوا خَيْرًا لِأَنفُسِكُمْ, because this is best for your own soul, for your own self, if you know. وَمَنْ يُوقَ شُحَّ نَفْسِهِ فَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمُ الْمُفْلِحُونَ, and those who control or conquer the greed of their own self, they are the ones who will emerge as successful or prosperous. The previous ayat says, إِنَّمَا أَمْوَالُكُمْ وَأَوْلَادُكُمْ فِتْنَةٌ وَاللَّهُ عِنْدَهُ أَجْرٌ عَظِيمٌ. Definitely, your wealth and your children are fitna. Now here, fitna means the source of trial, not fitna in the common usage as we understand it as corruption or as mischief. No, it's not meant in that sense here. إنما أموالكم وأولادكم فتنة. Your amwal, your wealth, your possessions, and your children whom you love a lot, and but who also act as a barrier and as obstacles for you to spend in the way of Allah, for the pleasure of Allah. They are a trial, and in this trial, in this tug of war of the trial, you have to conquer yourself, you have to conquer the love and the attachment that you have got and the attraction that you have got towards your own wealth and possessions and towards your own kith and kin, and overcome that desire of being attached with them if it comes in the way of Allah. Because the everlasting ajr, the everlasting reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this life, after all, is a temporary life, is a perishable life, it is going to go. And the reward of spending in the way of Allah, for the sake of Allah, for the love of Allah, everything that you have is everlasting, because the fruits of that labor you are going to gain in the future, in the everlasting life. Now here I have connected it with ayat number 15. With ayat number 17, inshallah, I will connect it in tomorrow's majlis. But let us see. Now here, if we look at our subject matter of yesterday, we will be able to see that the self is three-dimensional. The self is three-dimensional. It passes through three stages. It evolves, if you like. It evolves from the base of the base self to the highest of the level. From the base self, which is the absolute animalistic self, to the highest level, which is the self which has been able to attain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is pleased with it. Radiyatam mardiyah, and Allah is pleased with it. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us now the indication of to understand ourselves. All this effort is so that we put ourselves in the context and we understand ourselves. Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali bin Abi Talib salawatullah wa salamullahi alayhi, in the context of the categorization of the self, he has categorized human beings as well. He has categorized human beings as well. Now look at the very beautiful way he is presenting the categories, four categories of human beings. He has classified human beings into four broad categories. And what are these? And he says that Rajulun Yadri wa Yadri Annahu Yadri. Look at the fasahat, look at the balaghat, look at the oratory and speech and the sweetness in the speech. Rajulun Yadri wa Yadri Annahu Yadri. One category is of those or that man, those people who know and they know that they know. ذَلِكَ الْعَالِمْ فَاتَّبِعُوهُ. This is an alim. If you put him in that category, then he is an alim. So he is ordering us, فَاتَّبِعُوهُ, follow him. The another category is Rajulun La Yadri wa La Yadri Annahu La Yadri. And then another category of the man, of the human beings, are those that this is the man who doesn't know, and he doesn't know that he doesn't know. ذَلِكَ الْجَاهِلْ فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ. This is an ignorant. Be aware, refrain from him. Get away from him. Don't approach him. Because there is no likelihood that he is going to improve himself. He doesn't know. And he doesn't know that he doesn't know. So there is no drop of knowledge in what he represents. There, the one who knows, and he knows that he knows, there is knowledge surrounding him. And he has got self-confidence. And he is sure that he knows, he has got the proper knowledge, and he can guide others. Then the third category, which Amir al-Mu'mineen says, is Rajulun La Yadri wa Yadri Annahu La Yadri. And there is a man who doesn't know, but he knows that he doesn't know. Then Amir al-Mu'mineen gives his recognition, ذَلِكَ ذَلِكَ mustarshid farshidu. This is the man who seeks guidance. So guide him. See, there is a sympathy for somebody who is honest to himself. At least he is honest that he doesn't know. Otherwise, these days what happens, those people who do not know are in the forefront to represent themselves that they know everything. They are bikulli shay'in alimun khabir. They are full knowledgeable and they are fully experienced. Then the fourth category among the human beings. Now he is dividing the human beings into four categories. The fourth category, rajulun yadri wala yadri annahu yadri. Then there is four category is this, that the person knows he has got knowledge, but he doesn't know that he has got knowledge. He doesn't know that he has got knowledge. Amir al-Mu'minin says, "Dhalika na'imun fanqidhuh." This man is asleep, so get him up from the sleep, from the slumber. And when he gets up, then he will know that all the time he was thinking he didn't know, whereas he knew. These are the four categories. In the context of yesterday's majlis, in yesterday's majlis we had the categories of the self, of the soul, which is inside the human being. Here the category of the human beings. In what classification Amir al-Mu'minin is presenting them. Now we have to take our examples from the history of Islam. We want to know who these people are and in which category are we going to put the Yazidis, and in which category we are going to put the Hussainis, in which category we are going to put those people who are prone and attracted towards the evil-orientated self, and in which category are we going to put to those who are satisfied that through their effort and endeavor and jiddu-jahad, they have been able to win the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But before I do so, before I give you examples from history, let us look at one crucial point, whereby taking into account this presentation that I have made in tonight's majlis, you'll be able to see that there is a tendency of knowing the facts and acting as if they do not know. There is a tendency also not knowing the facts and acting as if they know everything. This tendency exists. It exists in all the communities, isn't it? We meet with these tendencies in our daily life. These people who are used to making objections at this thing, they have to understand this point that I'm going to mention in the context of one hadith that I'm presenting in front of you, of that of Imam Zainul Abidin salawatullah wa salamullahi alayhi. Imam alayhi salam says, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you, how many pair of ears we have got? One. Imam says he has given you 2 pair of ears. He has given you two pair of eyes. 2 pair of eyes, that means 4 eyes, 4 ears. And Imam says Allah has given you 2 hearts inside you. 1 pair of eyes we are able to see, through it we are able to see each other, isn't it? 1 pair of ears through which we are able to hear each other, isn't it? But there is a hidden pair of eyes and there is a hidden pair of ears. They have got a direct link and direct connection with the 2 hearts. 1 heart we know, which pumps the blood and distributes blood in the human body. That we know that if it becomes sick or if it becomes afflicted with any disease, then there are cures available. That is, if the heart is sick, then the surgeons are going to conduct surgery, heart transplant operation, the other operations to put things right. But there is another heart, which if it gets sick, and if we don't cure it in this life itself, it will carry forward its sickness in the grave, in the barzakh, and on the day of resurrection. Except that in the barzakh, If, for example, good deeds are performed and prayers are performed and the ibadat are performed and dua is performed for the isar sawab of the marhum, then these good deeds happen to wash off the bad deeds or the sickness of the heart. Sickness of the heart is the worst, absolutely worst sickness with which any organ of our body, whether apparent or not apparent, is going to be afflicted, because it is very dangerous. It is very dangerous. Here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَنْ كَانَ فِي هَذِهِ أَعْمَى فَهُوَ فِي الْآخِرَةِ أَعْمَى وَأَضَلُّ سَبِيلًا. Whoever is blind in this life, he is going to be blind. Man kana fi hadihi a'ma fahuwa fil akhirati a'ma. He will be blind in the akhirat, in the hereafter. Wa adallu sabila, and he will be more astray. Which blindness he is talking about? The blindness he is talking about is not the physical blindness. He is talking about the inside. The inside. So that means the heart has got two ways of perceiving. One heart perceives things because the heart is breathing and pumping blood, so there is movement in the body and there is life in the body. And whatever is apparent and whatever we can perceive in our material life, we are able to understand. But the actual understanding is the blindness, or is the sight of the heart. That side of the heart that Imam Zain al-Abidin is speaking about. The side of the heart which looks beyond what is apparent, which looks at something which is not apparent, which looks at, for example, if the heart transplant surgery is taking place, you will not be able to search for that heart which is not apparent heart. Only you will be able to interact with the heart which is a physical heart, but not the spiritual heart. But you have got a spiritual heart through which you are able to perceive, you are able to receive the message, you are able to take your adoration and advice of the Ma'asumin alayhi salatu wasalam. That is the function of the spiritual heart. Likewise, there is a function of the spiritual ears. The ears which see apparent things. But the ears, the eyes which see the apparent things, and the ears that hear apparent things. But if there is something very damaging spiritually that we force ourselves, or intentionally or unintentionally, to see something which is prohibited by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then its effect goes on the spiritual eyes. And if we hear something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has forbidden us to hear, then the spiritual effect of it goes to the spiritual ear. And they are all connected with the nafs. So eventually, if the punishment is to come, the nafs is going to bear the punishment. And if the reward is to come, if the thawab is to come, if the eternal bliss is to come, if the salvation is to come, then the nafs is going to benefit from it. And as I said, as I distinguish between what is nafs and what is ruh, I don't want to repeat that thing. But ruh is something else. Ruh is based on the very secrecy of the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But that is outside our distinct. So now we have seen the link which exists between the pair of ears, the pair of eyes, the two hearts, with the spiritual life of human being. So we are, for example, look at the wonderful things, really. If we try to understand more and more, we become sometimes confused, but the matter is very straightforward. We are sitting here. Every single person of us, although you are hearing me apparently, but you are not hearing me apparently. Why? Because you are talking to yourself. I am speaking. Apparently, anybody who's hearing my voice would say that the speaker is such and such person. But am I only speaking? No, I'm talking with myself as well. Isn't it? Likewise, when we sleep, we are also communicating with ourselves. There is not a single moment that we are not talking to ourselves. Even in the prayers we are talking to ourselves. That's why Rasulullah Khuda Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says that if somebody prays 2 rakats, 2 units namaz without talking to himself during the prayers, I guarantee him he is going to go to heaven. Now try it. Try to pray 2 rakats without talking to yourself. Constantly we are talking to ourselves. Whether we are sitting in the majlis, whether we are praying, whether we are fasting, whether we are doing tawaf khana Kaaba, there is your arch enemy who is following you everywhere. And that enemy has got a control over your nafsul ammara bisu. As you are circumambulating the Kaaba, he is talking to you. He is forcing you. He is forcing you to do something which is not desirable, which is against the ahkam of the Shariat, which Allah does not like. He is forcing you. Even once you are standing at the door of the Kaaba, he is seducing you, isn't it? That's why we have been told that if you want to do the correct tarbiyat of the self, then control your lower self completely so that it becomes subservient to you and you don't become subservient to it. This is important because the acceptability of our prayers, our ibadat, our devotion, our dedication to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, our love for the Ma'asumin alayhi salatu wasalam is based on this, that how much we are able to conquer ourselves, how much we are able to abandon and to refrain from things that Allah has prohibited to do, and how much we are able to act upon things that Allah has ordered us to do. Now here, this is the explanation of this. Man kana fi hadhihi a'ma fahuwa fil akhirati a'ma wa adallu sabila. If he departs from here with the blindness of his insight, that he is going to be resurrected with the blindness of the insight, and he will be more astray on the day of resurrection. Therefore, whatever improvement is to come has to come in this life. Once we are in the grave, there is no way that we are going to return back. The time for improving ourselves, doing amal, and to become muttaqi has gone. Forever it has gone. Then we will be at the mercy of our children and our loved ones, whether they decide to send us Surah Fatiha on the Shab Jum'ah, or they decide to forget us. We will be entirely at their mercy. So, the time for action, the time of work is now, not tomorrow. It's now. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives this different examples. On the contrary, let me say that the history also, of course, Allah gives us the examples through Qisas al-Anbiya in the Quran. Even the Qisas al-Anbiya draw a lot of examples whereby we can derive a lot of benefit from it. But if we come to our own history, the history of Islam, see how much the history of Islam is presenting these 2 categories. There is one category who is always alam bardar, or proclaims the falsehood. There is one category which proclaims the truth. There is one category who is bent to mislead others, to spoil their own akhirat, and to spoil the akhirat of their other people. And there is one category who wants to sacrifice everything in order to give us the benefit, give us the human beings the benefit, spiritual benefit of getting the salvation in the hereafter, which is very important. The salvation, we are all endeavoring to get the salvation of the hereafter and the bliss and the everlasting happiness in the paradise and under the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whereby the bounties are showered upon us. But this does not come automatically. It needs a lot of effort. Come to the sacrifice of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wasalam. How is Imam Hussein presenting these people who are the products, or who have derived their graduation from the school of Ahlul Bayt, and they have been trained, they have derived their tarbiyat, main tarbiyat, in the matter of religion, in the matter of spirituality, from Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam Hussein decides to leave Mecca after having left Medina and after having stayed for 4 months in Mecca, and whereby all the Muslims, there is no Muslim who doesn't know that Imam Hussein has come for a purpose, because even during his stay in Mecca, he holds these gatherings, assembly, whereby the largest assembly in Masjidul Haram is that of Imam Hussein. Even Muawiyah, when he said to somebody that when you go to Mecca, you will be able to see people listening so much attentively to the crowd of Hussein ibn Ali as if there is a bird on their head. They won't be moving from their place when Hussein ibn Ali is speaking, as if there is a bird sitting on their head. Even the enemy knows what is the status of Ahlul Bayt, what is the status of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. As he approaches Kufa, and before he gets the news of the martyrdom of his emissary, now there are emissaries. Abdullah bin Yaqtar was emissary of Imam Hussein, who was killed. Janab Muslim bin Aqil was emissary. Hani ibn Urwa was one of the companions, not only Imam Hussein, the companion of the Amirul Mu'mineen, who had fought all the 3 battles in the company of Amirul Mu'mineen, Jamal, Siffin and Nahrawan. And there is this emissary, Qais bin Mazhar al-Saydawi. His name is Qais bin Mazhar al-Saydawi. He is a young person, very enthusiastic, very brave. And Imam Hussein wanted to send a message, but it was a confidential message. He wanted somebody who would be prepared to face any dangers or any hardships, but to convey the message. The message is being sent after the letter of Muslim ibn Aqil has reached the Imam, that Ibn Rasulullah, come forward and come to Kufa, because 18,000 Kufans have paid oath of allegiance to me in your name. So now the time is ripe, come forward. But the news of martyrdom has not yet reached. So he chooses Qais bin Asar al-Saydawi and gives him a letter which is addressed to the people of Kufa. Qais takes the letter, comes nearer to Kufa. When he reaches nearer to Kufa, Hasan bin Namir gets hold of him and brings him in front of Ibn Ziyad. Now, this case, this is what Qais was worried about. Therefore, very carefully, he had taken his precautions in protecting the letter, so that if the worst comes to worst and the letter is seized, then what he should do. He was prepared for that. The letter was about to be seized. Ibn Ziyad asked him, what have you got with you? He said, I got the letter. But before Ibn Ziyad could take hold of the letter, he ate the letter. He put it in his mouth and he ate it. He said, why did you eat it? Eat it. He said, because it carries an important message. From whom? From whom? And who are you in any case? He said, I am one of the Shia of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Ali bin Abi Talib alayhi salam. Whose letter was it? It was the letter of my Imam Hussein ibn Ali. For whom? For the people of Kufa. He said, all right, come on the minbar and tell the Kufans that Hussein and his father, now the word that he used, I cannot use it on the minbar, is so and so. He said, all right, give me the chance. He comes on the minbar and he said, oh people of Kufa, this liar, this Kadhab ibn Kadhab, and the person who has appointed him, the Kadhab ibn Kadhab. So he told the Kufans that these people who have invited Hussein and betrayed him are all liars. Your Imam is approaching and he needs your assistance. And do not listen to Ibn Ziyad, but listen to me. Imam needs your assistance and he is on his way. As soon as he finished the message, he was struck and he was killed, and then he was beheaded. This is this is the fourth emissary of Imam Hussein being killed. On the other hand, look at the other side of the picture, because I was giving you today in my entire majlis the comparisons, isn't it? The comparisons between the good and the evil, and the truthful and the falsehood. Now look at the falsehood, how it portrays itself. Imam Hussein alayhi salam meets Marwan after the first encounter he had with Walid and Marwan in his darbar, in his court. Marwan tells him, "Oh Hussein, I want to give you some advice. Look at the polluted self. Look at the way the polluted selves think. The slaves of the nafsul ammara bisu. I want to give you an advice in which there is the betterment, best thing for your world and the hereafter." He said, "Yes, and what it is?" He said, "I advise you to follow the imamate and the khilafat of Yazid ibn Muawiyah. By following the leadership of Yazid ibn Muawiyah, there is good for you in this world and in the hereafter." So Marwan is giving advice to the Imam of the time what is good for him in this life and in the hereafter. Imam Hussein, as soon as he heard this message, he said, "Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un." He said, "وَبِالْإِسْلَامِ السَّلَامِ إِذَا بُلِيَتِ الْأُمَّةِ مثل الراع مثل يزيد ibn Muawiyah." We have to bid complete farewell to Islam if the Muslim Ummah is afflicted with the leadership or leader like Yazid ibn Muawiyah. Hussein's reply is quite frank, straightforward. Now come to Karbala. Now these are the nights of whereby we mention the great sacrifices which will remain unmatchable, uncomparable in the annals of the history of mankind. So I will complete my masaib on the tale or on the story of four heads, because I take consolation, a great relief that our main speaker, Hazrat Allama Sadiq Hasan Sahab, takes a great pain in reciting the masaib in great detail. And I wouldn't like to repeat what has already been recited. May Allah give him more tawfiqat to recite more and more masaib in the way he is reciting. Ilahi Amin. Now here, Imam Hussein alayhi salam is presenting now the Ismails whom he has brought on the battlefield of Karbala. Ismail was one. Ibrahim presented one Ismail. Hussein is presenting 72 Ismails by presenting the Zibh Azim. Here Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when Hur fell on the ground and called Imam Hussein reached at the place where Hur was lying, but there was blood gushing out from his head, from his forehead. Imam Hussein alayhi salam, what he did, he took out a thing, a possession which was very dear to his heart, and that was the handkerchief which was woven by Sayyidat Nisa'il Alameen Fatimatu Zahra, and he tied the wound on his forehead with the handkerchief of Janab Siddiqa Tahira, and the blood stopped flowing. And look at the karamat of Imam Hussein, look at the mu'jiza of Imam Hussein, if you like, that because of that handkerchief, Hur's head was not severed. Hur is the one who was buried after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein by his own tribesmen with full honor and with full decor, with his head. Another head. When Habib ibn Mazahir fell, and when after the martyrdom of Imam Hussein all the heads were severed, Habib ibn Mazahir's head was also severed. When this caravan entered Kufa, there was a young boy who saw a head on the spear, and he started following the man on whose spear a head appeared. Wherever the head went, wherever the spear went, this boy kept on following him. This man turned and asked the young man, he said, "Why are you following me? When I went inside the darbar, you followed me. When I you followed me. You are following me on the... He said, because this head is that of my father. Give me this head. I'm going to wash it and I'm going to bury it. I say, oh, Zainul Abidin, Qasim ibn Habib ibn Mazahir is not in chains and shackles so he can ask for the head of his father. But you, Zainul Abidin, you are not in that position. Two heads. When in the Darbar of Sham, the tyrant decided that now I'm going to release the Ahlul Bayt. Janab Zainab said, I want to hold the Majlis of Hussein. The first Majlis of Hussein was held in Sham. Janab Zainab asked for all the heads. All the heads came into the prison. Into the prison. Every single lady took the head of our beloved. Two heads remain in the tasht, in the tray. The ladies of Sham started asking each other, haven't these two kids got any relative among these ladies? Janab Zainab said, these are the heads of my sons, Aoun Muhammad. Since they got martyred, I have only cried for my brother Hussein. I haven't remembered my sons, Aoun Muhammad, because I sacrificed them for my brother Hussein alayhi salam. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون. اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات وتابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك قاضي الحاجات إنك على كل شيء قدير. الفاتحة.
صلوات بالمحمد.